Learn English through story. The light beyond desire. In a town tucked against the blue edge of the Mediterranean, the air was warm and the days stretched like honey across rooftops. In this sunlit cradle of stones and sea salt, life held a rhythm that was steady, unhurried, as if the waves themselves dictated the passage of time. At the heart of this town was a small shop filled with artifacts from forgotten places, mirrors that caught the light, like polished water, faded maps, pieces of coral, and charms that glimmered with old magic. And behind the counter was a woman, with hair the color of dried sage and eyes that seemed to hide centuries of secrets. The woman, Rosa, was nearing 40, though her face remained ageless, with a quiet beauty that drew strangers to her shop. Rosa had always been drawn to the old, the antique, and the mystical. Her shop was her life, filled with remnants of distant lands and lives she'd never known, but felt in her bones. She was known in the town for her kindness, for her quiet wisdom, and for a smile that could ease the deepest sorrow. Yet within Rosa was a hunger, a longing she barely understood. She had felt it her entire life, a restlessness that stirred her heart like the whisper of a faraway lover. At night, she would sit on her balcony, watching the stars prick the sky with light, and feel that ache rise in her chest. She would touch the lace at her throat, her fingers tracing her pulse, as if it held the secret of her unspoken desires. One late afternoon, as the sky blazed orange with the setting sun, a stranger entered Rose's shop. He was tall, with hair dark as raven feathers, and eyes that held a storm. His clothes, though worn, were of fine quality, and there was a foreness about him that caught Rose's attention. He moved like a shadow across her floor, his gaze drifting over the artifacts as if they were old friends. When he looked at her, she felt her heart stammer, as if he had reached across the distance between them and touched her very soul. "Are you looking for something particular?" she asked, her voice steady despite the heat rushing through her. He smiled, a slow curve of his lips that was almost a secret. "Perhaps. I have traveled far, but I do not know if what I seek can be found in a shop." Intrigued, Rosa tilted her head. "And what is it that you seek?" He paused, his gaze lingering on her, as if weighing whether to answer. Finally he said, "I seek release." The word hung in the air, heavy and intimate. Rosa felt her cheeks warm, and she was grateful for the dim light that cloaked her flush. "Release from what?" The stranger turned, his gaze moving across the shop, settling on a small brass key that hung from a chain. "From longing," he murmured, "from the ache that has followed me my whole life, always just out of reach." In that moment, Rosa knew, she understood him. She felt the same ache, the same endless longing, though she had never spoken of it. She had thought herself alone in her hunger for something more, something nameless and vast. The stranger stayed in town, returning to Rose's shop each day. He never bought anything, but his presence filled the space between them with an electric tension. They spoke of their lives, of dreams and fears, of that terrible, beautiful ache that drove them both. In his company, Rosa felt alive, her senses sharp and her heart pounding in a way that was both thrilling and frightening. She knew she was falling under a spell, one woven from desire and the strange comfort of being truly seen. One evening, as they stood on the balcony outside her shop, the stranger reached for her hand. His touch was gentle, yet it ignited a fire within her. He leaned close, his breath warm against her skin. "Do you feel it too?" he whispered, his voice like velvet against her ear. Rosa nodded, unable to speak. She felt her body trembling, as if it had been waiting her entire life for this moment. She knew what he was offering, what he was asking, and every part of her wanted to surrender. But deep within her, a voice held her back, a whisper of caution, a reminder of all she could lose. In the days that followed, their encounters became charged with unspoken desire. They moved around each other like moths around a flame, both drawn and wary, knowing that to touch would be to burn. Rosa found herself dreaming of him, waking with his name on her lips, her body aching with need. She had never felt so alive, so intoxicated, and yet so empty. One night, the stranger invited her to his room at the inn. Rosa went, her heart pounding, her skin flushed with anticipation. But as she stood before him, as his hands traced her body like a lover's prayer, she felt a sudden wave of fear. This was not what she truly wanted. It was desire, yes, a fierce and consuming need, but it was not the answer to her longing. She pulled away, her chest heaving, tears brimming in her eyes. "I can't," she whispered, her voice breaking. This is not what I am searching for." The stranger looked at her, his eyes soft with understanding. He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I know," he said quietly. "Neither is it what I truly seek." In that moment, Rosa understood that they were mirrors of each other, both driven by the same ache, the same hunger, but neither able to fill the emptiness they carried. She realized that what she had mistaken for love was, in truth, the allure of the unknown, the thrill of what might be, but could never last. They parted that night, with no promises, no goodbyes. The stranger left town the next morning, disappearing into the horizon like a wisp of smoke. Rosa returned to her shop, feeling both relieved and hollow. She knew she would never see him again, and yet she felt as if he had left something behind, a spark that now burned within her. In the weeks that followed, Rosa felt the ache within her shift. The longing was still there, but it had transformed, deepened into something richer, something she could not name. She began to understand that the emptiness she had felt was not something that could be filled by another person, no matter how alluring. It was a part of her, a wound and a gift, a reminder that life was vast and full of mystery. As the years passed, Rosa found peace in her solitude. She continued to feel the longing, the ache that whispered to her in the quiet hours, but she no longer feared it. She knew it was a part of her, a sign of her aliveness, her openness to the beauty and sorrow of existence. And though she never saw the stranger again, she carried him within her, a reminder of the light beyond desire, the quiet strength of a heart that can hold its own longing. In the end, Rosa's life was filled with love, not the fiery, consuming love she had once craved, but a gentler, deeper love, a love that embraced both the ache and the peace, the beauty and the sorrow. And as she grew older, she knew that this was the truest love of all, the love that lay beyond lust and longing, the love that could fill even the deepest emptiness with light. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoy, then please like and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel.